Hmm? Ah! Oh.
How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Did you just wake up with hair that looks like that?
Took a shower. Podcast Junkies, Season 2. We are back, episode 105 with Ellory Wells. Ellory is, as with all past guests, someone with whom I have a bit of history, going all the way back to podcast movement number 1 in 2014 in Dallas. We ran in the same circles, and I believe we had a common friend in Chris Cerrone. We actually do, and we just never got to have a long chat. We'd just say hi in the hallways or see each other online, and it's just one of those names where I was watching his success with his show, and he would occasionally engage with me online or in a Facebook group. But recently, Podcast Movement 2016 in Chicago, we ended up catching each other at the PMX talks, which are the TEDx style talks that they do for speakers at Podcast Movement. And so we connected there, and then in the hallway, and then I said, you know what, it's long overdue. You need to come on. And he did, and we had a fantastic conversation. He talks a lot about being in corporate life previously. He was laid off in 2009. And in 2014, he was fired again. And he talks about that experience and how that really cemented for him that podcasting and coaching folks on how to be better entrepreneurs was really more in line with who he is. He's also been a member of Toastmasters. He did theater in high school. He's just really well-rounded, and I think he's really in his sweet spot now. So as happens all the time when you do have a longer conversation, I just got to know him a little bit better, and I'm really glad we got a chance to talk. It's been about a month ago since this was recorded, but it's evergreen as always, and I really think you'll enjoy getting to know him a little bit more. In case you missed last week's conversation, it was with Stefan Spencer. And Stefan is a well-regarded SEO expert. He's written an incredibly big book on the importance of SEO. But interestingly enough, that's not at all what we talked about during the episode. It was just a fascinating discussion about the importance of Tony Robbins in completely transforming his life. It's an amazing story. And we took some turns that were really not expected. So check that out if you haven't already, episode 104. If you're new to the show, my name is Harry Duran. This is Podcast Junkies. I'm glad you made it this far. We talk to engaging and interesting podcasters every single week. I never get tired of it, and there's no shortage of them. I've got another interviews in the can already, and they keep getting... I think at one point I was thinking about whether I've run out of people to talk to that fit the profile of what makes sense for this show, but as is the case, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So good thing for you guys, because I just continue to bring you fascinating stories. So enjoy the conversations, and stay tuned afterwards for the retention hashtag. It's my way of seeing who's paying attention, and some more information about our new sponsor, PodFunnel, a new service that's going to actually make your life a little bit stressful if you're a solo podcaster. Enjoy. Sorry, one more thing. If you were listening and paying attention last week or the last couple of weeks, you know that I've asked for comments via SpeakPipe, and I've received my first few. So I'm not going to let you know who they are. You're going to have to listen to the end. But I've included that in this week's audio in the outro. So listen in, and you get to hear who they are and my comments on them and why I think they're so amazingly awesome. On to the show.
How you doing, man?
I'm great.
Did you just wake up with hair that looks like that?
Took a shower.
Do you ever watch How I Met Your Mother?
I've seen maybe a couple episodes, not the whole thing.
I have a feel the character that Neil Patrick Harris plays, it's a big joke that he never takes a bad picture. I feel like that's you and my friend Justin Carper. You guys have that same professionally styled hair. We would meet. Our masterminds used to meet at 6. Well, 6 here. It was 7 there, and like every time, I've never seen his one hair out of place. That's you right now.
Part of it is I am a bit OCD with some stuff like that. But I do, there's something to be said for trying to look presentable in a interview as well.
What are you trying to say something?
No, you look great. And I used to buzz my head a couple of years ago. Like every summer, as soon as it started getting hot, I'm like all off, and I'm like, that's the easiest thing to do. Don't have to worry about gel, nothing. You wake up and you're like, oh shit, looks the same as it did when I went to sleep.
Well, I started doing this in 2000, I think, in 6. I in college I had it long because I didn't want to deal with it. It's like, what? This is a waste of freaking time. I could either sleep in a few more minutes or do something else. Then I cut it short to be presentable for a wedding. Did the whole gel and styling bit and whatever. I was like, this is dumb. And I've been cutting it every 2 weeks like this. Man, I guess it means like 10 years now. So,
well, the good thing is you can do that yourself, right?
I do it myself. I'm gone my second shaver, and just I don't want to waste my time on that stuff, man.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that whole mindset of like you have a set amount of energy and brain power in the day, and then you have to choose like what do you want to do. Like the example I use is breakfast. I literally have the same thing for breakfast during the week. I have eggs, gluten-free toast, coffee, and I make it for myself and my wife, and it's just easy. And I'm programmed already. I'm like, I can get it done in like 15, 20 minutes. And then I want my brain power to be used for like the things I got to do. Like Obama, he's got the same suit. Like he says has the same suit, and he changes like maybe his 2 shirts or something like that. But I think we need to have those things where, you make a decision to say, that's not the best use of like my brain power right now. And I need to just put that in a routine. And for you, it's like cutting your hair every 2 weeks, and you can spend it on writing books.
There you go. Yeah. It's like not 14 days on the dot. Sometimes it seems to grow a little bit faster but as soon as it's like, yeah, that's not right, I got to go in there and cut it.
You can just tell, you can just put your hand on your head and just be like, oh, that's not right.
Exactly. So should I assume that you're one of those podcasters that like, as soon as we pick up the phone, like we're on air? I thought that might be the case. So I was hopefully prepared for that.
It's stream of consciousness type stuff. And if anything comes up that we need to ditch, then just let me know and we'll ditch it. So
no, it's fine. I'm just trying to live up to that interview you had for episode 100. Congrats, by the way, with Chase, man. Yeah. I got deep.
Yeah, I got really deep.
Like I only like my iTunes. I'm a PC guy, but you can't really avoid iTunes as a podcaster. I was listening to that, and then I had to move from the kitchen, and I only got like 35-ish minutes into it. I was like, man, we're getting into like the meaning of life, not just the meaning of life, but like what it means to think about. I mean, it was entertaining. Chase is always funny, but yeah, that was pretty good.
Well, it's one of those things that as podcasters we learn to always have the mic on, and I think it's maybe like the reporters have this mentality like, oh, just always record, you're gonna get that sound bite. And there's been so many times when I didn't have it on. I'm like, you've probably experienced this too. Like, wow, that 5 minutes was like amazing. We should start recording, and then you're never gonna like catch that moment again.
Well, unofficially, I use Pamela, and it records. I guess I could manually stop and start it, but I set it to do it automatically. I usually go through the like, okay, now we'll start recording, but it's kind of not good to do it that way, just because as soon as you say we're recording, people like forget their names, and it just I don't know if it's the lack of going to Toastmasters or whatever, but I've had people forget their Twitter handles, not be able to spit out their URL, and I've probably been there more times than I would. I've blocked it, but anyway, I record from the very, very beginning, but I don't always use it.
So are you a Toastmasters alum?
Can you ever be an alum of Toastmasters?
Well, yeah, it's one of those lifetime things, right?
I guess. I never got. I went for about a year. I did theater in high school. The last year and a half of high school, I did theater. I did some solo stuff and group stuff, and that really helped me be more comfortable either on stage in general or just with speaking. And I just, as my business started to pick up, I don't. There had to have been some reason where I just like kind of stopped, and then because it wasn't like I weaned off. I just stopped and then went 6 months later and then never went again. It's fun, but
I think about this. There's these skills that later on as entrepreneurs or now as entrepreneurs we find are so incredibly valuable. But then when we were in like school or college or even in our 9-to-5 jobs, and like no one was telling us like we need to focus like public speaking or like learning how to really start a business, not from what is the government agency, you go to the website and it's like helpful for startups and there's like 10 tips on how to do a startup, and you're like read them and like none of this is relevant. Like incorporate, like get business cards, open up a bank account. I'm like, where's the part that says you got to start making money, man? It's so strange.
Or get over the self-doubt of pitching a product that might or might not work, or any of the other. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
But it seems like all those things we have to do, we have to find out that we don't have those skills first, and then go looking for people that can point us in the right direction. In your case, right, Toastmasters, like at some point you're like, I need to speak publicly better, so maybe I should do something about that.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking this when Chase started talking about being into sci-fi and reading, and you guys talked a little bit about George R.R. Martin and stuff. I'm thinking all of the stuff that made people cool in like high school, middle school is like worthless now. I don't know if you were one of those cool kids, Harry. I was not. I hated middle school and most of high school. But all the like,
I was not a cool kid.
Like all this stuff that makes people interesting now would have gotten you shoved in a locker. I mean, you can't even talk about that now because it's like politically correct. Or I'm not for bullying either, but you know,
it sounded like you were saying, "Man, I miss a good like freshman in the locker." I got lucky. I got lucky because I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, and I mean hazing, frosh. It's called Frosh Fridays. It was horrible, and my brother was 1 year ahead of me. So thank God for that, because he sort of cleared the path. He's like, okay, you don't mess with George's brother. You know, he's like off limits. And so they would razz me a little and my friend a little, but there was some just crazy stuff. Like freshmen would be made to roll a pencil up the aisle of the school bus with their nose. It was crazy. Like,
dude, those private schools, man, they're the worst. I went to a private school in 6th grade and part of 7th grade. And the worst bullying, to not just to me. I was an outsider. Most of those guys and girls had gone, like they started kindergarten together, and you come in at 6th grade and there's like 40 people in all of the 6th grade, and you're an outsider and you don't have as much money as everybody else. Like your parents are scraping together to send you, and some kids are getting dropped off in the Mercedes or whatever. But anyway, I did not fit in, and the private schools seem to be the dumping ground for when you get kicked out of public school.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's probably not universally true, but anyway, 6th grade was miserable, and the stuff that makes you cool. Listen up, kids. The stuff that makes you unpopular and nerdy and whatever, middle school, people will love you for it when you're 30 something.
Well, I think
Stick it out.
But what's happening, Ellory, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I see a shift, man. I see like now they're proud, to wear these badges. That's like, the badge of honor of like being a geek, or I can, I'm super nerdy on Game of Thrones, or I have this comic book collection that's crazy, because I think what they're doing is they're finding their tribe online, and then they're getting all this support and to say, oh, that's so awesome that you do that. Someone in Japan is like liking your video and something like that. And you don't have to get acceptance from like your local community, which it used to be, 10, 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, the world saying the world is different is the understatement of the century. But I mean, we didn't have cable. We had like ABC, the ABC, NBC, and then we had like Channel 27, which had Fox and random stuff. We had like 5 channels. Now there's like 2,000. So there's a it's like podcasting and blogging. I mean, there are more ways for people to have a voice now, I feel like, than there was. I have no idea how old you are, but back in like the late 80s, early 90s, you got, I mean, there was TGIF, you got not Saved by the Bell, but, the Friday night show. Like, after that, it was.
It was must-see TV for a while, right?
Yeah, and then, I don't know, I didn't grow up watching TV. But anyway, you got it. It feels like it's easier to have a voice, partly maybe due to the internet, but now it would be easier because you can find your weird interests and stuff. It's easier to find other people with Google. Maybe it all has to do with Google being able to search for your weirdness online and find other people with the same weirdness. I don't know.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at how weird you can get and still find a community.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some strange stuff out there that people Google and they're like, oh, there are people who like punk and collect kitten posters and I don't know, and crochet or something. I don't know.
Well, one thing that you don't want to Google is when you're playing Cards Against Humanity. You ever played that?
I have not. I've heard really fun things about it though.
You just don't want that showing up in your Google history, like what all of this stuff means, right? I mean, maybe that's anyway.
Yeah. I'm sure someone's going to be doing it right after they listen to this episode.
Yeah, like, oh, well, let's see what that means. Like, oh,
yeah, yeah. Here's a tip: use your incognito window for that. So, you talk about this idea of having a platform for your voice, and you've done the 9 to 5. I did the 9 to 5 thing for like 20 years, and I'm sure you can relate to that. So, you started the blog first,
yeah.
And then you moved into the podcast, and now you've got the book. So at some point you realized you had a need to get your voice out there. And I'm wondering, like, when that happened. Like, when was that transition? Like, are you sitting in your cubicle and you're like, I need to say something?
Well, there was kind of a time that it happened. It was maybe more specific than other life-changing events with me or for other people. What I started doing is I was bored. Right? You're staring at the same freaking cubicle wall or the window that looks the same pasture with nothing on it. But I started reading these things on Huffington Post, Entrepreneur Inc., and I started just turning around and talking to my other cubicle guys like, hey, this, I just read this. What do you think? And we'd chat about it or whatever. And I started thinking, okay, well, the 3 or 4 of us at the end of the row here are enjoying talking about it. Maybe I'll put something together and send it out to other people who might enjoy reading it or whatever. So I did that, put it in a 1-page, saved it as a PDF and emailed it. And then one of the guys I used to work with at IBM emailed me back and he's like, hey, I really like this. I really like what you're doing. You've kind of inspired me to do this thing. And I was on a Friday. I was like January 27th, 28th, 2012. It's not really that relevant. I just happened to remember because I started my blog just a couple days later.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah. So I kind of inspired him, and him saying so inspired me. And so I got one of those like weird blogs.server234.net or whatever because I didn't want to spend any money. But then I started a blog and I was going to do the exact same thing. But I thought, you know what? If these guys can do this, they can write all this stuff, I was like, why can't I do the exact same thing? And fast forward now, I mean, can't believe it's been almost 4.5 years. That didn't even sound right to say it, but 4.5 years later, got a blog that gets a few thousand people every month. And
when you started the blog, you were scratching an itch, right? You felt like, because otherwise, because I think that what happens is we feel like if we don't get this out of our system, we're going to feel like, oh man, I got something to say, or I got something to share, and I don't know where to share it, but I need to start somewhere, or else I'm just going to go a little crazy. And I'm wondering, as you started to do that, if you felt like you were scratching that itch.
For me, Harry, I don't think it was this. Where was that? I don't think I had like this message like, oh my gosh, people will have to hear this. Not in the beginning of that, not in the beginning of the podcast. And I know not even at the when I sat down to start the book Exit Strategy. For me, it was a lot of it. I'm sure a psychologist would have a field day with this statement, but for me, it was like, well, if those guys can do it, why can't I do it too? And then it kind of evolved into, well, if they can do it, I can do it better. And it was just kind of this, no one ever told me, no, you can't do this. It was never that, but it was just like, why the hell not? Why can I not do this too? I don't need your permission.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of evolved into kind of a cornerstone of my messaging now is you don't need permission to do anything. Just go out there and do it. And that's kind of, I think, how the blog started. I know that's how the podcast and, like I said, the book started. There are other things that I have done that didn't come out of that why not me attitude, but I think that was more of the root, not necessarily an itch of like, oh, I've got this thing inside of me that just has to be let out, and I'm looking for a medium to do that with.
And then when did you feel like the blogging needed to grow or evolve into the podcast?
When I heard John Dumas on Smart Passive Income, I thought, like a lot of people do, I think, I was like, if John can do it, if this guy can do it, I can do it. I can make a lot of money. I mean, I just $10,000 a month. That'd be pretty freaking cool. So I'm not very shy about mentioning that. I got into podcasting because I thought I could and would make money. That said, I don't have sponsors on my show. I can tie a bunch of revenue to the show, but not directly. It's more of the like now a listener likes and trusts me now, so they're going to buy something. It wasn't like, I promoted XYZ product and then, use my coupon code. It wasn't anything like that.
Where was that need to? Is it just that you wanted to stop your job, or that you felt that you wanted the freedom of making the money on your own terms, so you can do what you want when you want?
It started without being any sort of entrepreneur motivation behind it at all. It was, these are interesting, I want to share it and have a conversation. And then I thought I started a book club at work too of reading, and that probably came out of also this sharing of articles and this one-page PDF thing, and also the blog. I think honestly it was something I thought could help me get promoted, like illustrate leadership in this capacity and start this book club and lead these people through a personal development journey, and I'll get tapped and say, all right, we'd like you to, take over a team. I thought it would get me promoted. It actually did the exact opposite of that. It was, I can't say it was the worst thing that I did, period, but it was probably the worst thing that I did for my career.
How so?
And how so?
Yeah.
Oddly enough, there's a chapter, called John Maxwell Ruins My Career and the Point of No Return, I think. Yeah. It was bad because I was reading all of these business books like EntreLeadership and 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, all of this stuff. And I was reading up until the 21 laws. I had read things that made a lot of sense, but I was like, okay, that works for Dave Ramsey. I mean, he's got 500 employees, but Dell has 80,000 employees. I mean, there's 150 people on my side of one floor of this building in my department. So I don't know if these leadership and business principles, how to treat people, how to do XYZ, I don't know if they scale to multinational tens of thousands. And then I read 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and John Maxwell does a case study on Costco, one of the largest companies in the world. And then that was it. That was kind of the end. So while I was learning a lot, all of a sudden it went from, okay, this same stuff that I've been learning about taking responsibility and treating people different, it works for Costco. And so at that point, Harry, it was just like, if it works for them, I mean, why could it not work here? And it came down to either an ignorance of a better way or an unwillingness to do it a better way. And so, like I said, it was fantastic to read all of those books, but that was really the beginning of the end. I saw that there was a better way, that it worked, and that we weren't doing it as a company. So
there's something about that moment when it's this shift that happens, and it happened for me when I just knew that it's so weird. It's like a real actual path, like forming like your new fork in life. And I'm wondering if that's what it felt like. Cause for me, it's just like, I'm not going to be on this path anymore. Like when in that moment when you're like, I'm not going to be in a 9-to-5 job anymore. And I don't know how soon it's going to happen and how soon I'm going to get it off, but it's like, I now see a new way to do things and a new way to have a life that's fulfilling and not be like driven by the whims of my manager and his manager and the director and the VP and whatever that chain goes like in corporate America. And you just like, man, we all have aspirations, and you talked about leadership. So I imagine at some point you were looking to climb that ladder, and then you realized it was leaning against the wrong building.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit more stubborn than the average person. I mean, we've heard of the phrase aha moments and all this stuff. For me, it was probably like several things over 5 or 6 years. There wasn't like one. I mean, I've had smaller aha moments that have like changed course just a little bit, but I really realized that I would not climb as high as I wanted to at Dell, and other people wouldn't either, because I looked at a guy, I forgot his name. He came in as like one of the senior VPs. So he was my boss's boss. He was like 2 or 3 from Michael Dell. And he had a salary $8 million, which, by the way, he was let go like 6 months after that because he was an idiot. Yeah. Anyway, so he's getting paid all of this money, which we all wanted. We all wanted to make that kind of money, but he had done a tour of duty, if you will. Like he worked here. He went to an Ivy League. He did something over in Europe. He came back. And he was also at Bain Consulting, and he worked at IBM, and then he came back, and like, there's just not enough time in the day for someone in their late 20s, even though that's not very old, to make that long tour to come back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go and get a job at Bain in New York and work in Manhattan wearing a suit for a few years and then go over to the UK division, So I don't know. In some ways, I think part of my story sounds very jaded, and I don't know, but it was several different things that kind of led me to where I am now, and even that sounds kind of weird, where I am now. But
how was the reaction to those that were closest to you, and was it something visible that they saw in you that was changing, as like your mindset, or even like sometimes your attitude is different, or sometimes the way you act with people when you feel like you're on the right path, you're just happier. And I'm wondering if those closest to you were starting to see the change.
Absolutely. That was kind of one thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about too often. I've mentioned it a few times with some of my clients about in relation to like vacation time, oddly enough. But when you are miserable like I was 40 to 50 hours a week, it you can't really just turn it off when you get home. Like you wake up and you're excited. I used to get up 3 hours before I had to be at work, and I would read and I would blog and do all these things. And then I'd go and be miserable from 9 until 6. And then I'd sit in traffic and come home and get home about 6:30 or so. And you it's a, I don't know, you digest the day, or you've got this like filthy anger all the time, and then you just can't just like just be this happy person. And you do that for a few years, and then you just become a miserable person. Not on purpose. Maybe it is on purpose. I don't feel like it necessarily was. But yeah, I was a lot happier. My wife noticed that as well. I felt like if you were keeping a tally of like good days and bad days. I said this to someone just the other day. I don't have very many bad days anymore. And that's kind of like a unspoken, maybe kind of side benefit of doing something you enjoy all the time. Just not miserable. You're just happy. You laugh more. You see flowers and butterfly, But
no, it's true. I mean, your perspective, like if you don't have some space left in your brain or whatever, your soul and your heart, to kind of like just to appreciate the good things in life after working like 8, 9, 10 hour days, that's gonna just like harden your heart, maybe, or just make you feel like, damn, I'm like literally stuck on this hamster wheel and I see no way out. And as you're saying what you're saying about like how you're feeling, I was, getting this like visceral feeling of like what it must be like to hear those words and be in that situation. Because to hear it, I hear it and I was there. But if I'm like, for those that are listening and are in the car, and this and what Ellory just said is striking a chord with you, there's a reason that it's striking a chord. And, there's people that are meant to do 9 to 5, and we can't all be entrepreneurs. We need people that in these offices doing these things. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But if you feel that calling, and if you had like that visceral reaction when Ellery was speaking, I think that might be a sign that you might not be on the right path, and you might need to start, reading Ellery's book or checking out the podcast and figuring out if there's maybe another way.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're Monday through Friday. Monday and Tuesday, it's what did you do over the weekend? On Wednesday and Thursday, it's Wednesday, it's like
hump day.
This sucks. Let's take an executive lunch. It's a little bit longer. And then Thursday and Friday morning, it's what are you doing for this weekend? So you're surrounded by people, even if they like what they do, you're surrounded by people that are constantly talking about what they do in their off time. Yeah. And it's always this race to like you don't schedule calls on Friday afternoon, just hoping maybe, we're ahead of our quota and they'll send us home. Or you're ahead of your quota, but nobody else is, and they can't send you home because it would look bad, But it's just who you surround yourself really matters. And even if they're not bad people or negative people, even if they like it, it's still this conversation of what are we going to do when we escape? At 5:00 on Friday or whatever.
Well, people, I mean, there's this Parkinson's principle, how work expands to fit the time that's allotted. And this idea that, okay, you have 8 hours to do your work today. And there's nothing like about that number that says like you're telling me every single person in America and most of the world, they need 8 hours to like do their, like literally like we're automatons, like robots. Like that's what you would program a robot to do. Like this, you finish this task in 8 hours. Some people work fast, some people slow, but we all know that example of like, hey, your boss comes in, is like, hey, Ellery, I need that report like in 2 hours. Like, or you're not going home. And you're like, magically, you have this like power to do the report. But if he says, hey, Ellery, I need that report next week, is fine. And you're like, you're like, it gets spread out and it takes like 2 weeks, a week to do it. And so
Alt tab back over to YouTube.
Alt tab. Yeah, and then we just try to fit our time, and like, how many people are like sitting there like, gotta look busy, and then like doing the alt tab and just like having this spreadsheet handy that they could just toggle back forth to. And it's like Excel, yes, I'm working on the spreadsheet, and then just back when the boss is away.
Did you ever get those? They kind of circulated through the email a few years ago. It's an Excel spreadsheet that's a game.
Oh, really?
Like down at the bottom, you can see your icons of what's open, and it opens in an Excel spreadsheet. But I don't know how it's done, but it's like a little basic, like Nintendo-esque game. So you can have a spreadsheet open, but you're like playing whatever. But
yeah, well, it's the things that we do to like avoid I mean, that's a sign that shit is broken, right? That you shouldn't be in a position where you're doing that, where you're just fooling yourself and fooling your boss. And you think about this on a corporation level, how much time is wasted? Like, how much time is wasted from people who are just, screwing around on their computer. And then when you do that math of like meetings are horrible, right? Everyone, and then if you do, okay, there's 10 people in the meeting and you're in that meeting for an hour, and let's say everyone makes $100,000, and whatever the hours on that work, like literally every meeting is costing you, the company, like tens of thousands of dollars, over the course of several months, in just like bullshit, like non-productive, no work gets done during that time. And people need a couple minutes to get ready for the meeting, and then after the meeting, like, oh, it's lunch, so let's just go to lunch, and then just like, I'm sure people have analyzed that, and I know people are trying to do things like standing meetings now and agile meetings and all that stuff. But that, I mean, just all that just seems like it's broken, and I think we see it now as entrepreneurs because we think we would never run our business like that. It's so banana.
I don't want to pay for that crap. I don't want to pay for you. Yeah,
like to think to have someone that works for us that would be like inclined to be like hiding like their work from us and then taking like long lunches, and I don't. I have a couple people that help me, and I don't give them a schedule. I'm just like, these are things that need to get done whenever you think you can do them and however you think you can do them, as long as you get them done by, X day, then I'm cool. Like if you need to do them from your living room in your pajamas, or like, do it all in one day, it's fine. But everybody has a different way of working, and to kind of fit people into this 40-hour work week, 8 hours a day, like mold, because that's what it is, right? We just pour everyone into this mold and expect they're all going to produce the same way. It's just crazy when you think about it.
Well, I charge my clients and pay people who I pay based on their performance, like a specific results or a commission, or I know it should take this long, or I want this result, whether it takes you 3 hours or 30 minutes. I just want the final product.
Yeah.
But when I was in sales, at one point, we called it our EPIN, like electronic penetration. But it was how many of our orders were done online through these Premier pages, which basically means like passive income is what we would call it.
Yeah.
These days. At one point, 89% of my orders were going through online. Like I didn't have to touch them. There were like, they'd go in, the customer would log into a portal and everything. So 89% of my $4 or $5 million for that quarter was all done online. And I'm supposed to sit there with people that are getting faxed orders and they have to enter them manually, which was the guy who became my boss and then fired me. He was getting faxes and doing them manually because he thought that was better customer service. I'm like, my customers pretty much love working with me because I get their orders faster and there's no chance for mess ups, but whatever. But yeah, it's just we're not all the same. And I like that you brought up, do we need a world full of entrepreneurs or do we not? I guess at some point there's somebody who can't be entrepreneur focused, but even if you're talking about like a salesperson, they can be entrepreneur focused and their business is promoting other business or whatever. I don't know. I think that's kind of an interesting conversation. I don't know we'd ever get to any sort of conclusion or decision about it. But
yeah, I think to your point, there are things that they can learn that work for entrepreneurs that they can. There's a word now called intrapreneur with an I, and it's people who are doing entrepreneurial stuff, but within the confines of business. One of my clients has a podcast called Innovation Ecosystem, and he has conversations with people that have those types of, that do think like that. So I think if corporations are to evolve, they're going to have to figure out like what's working out there for entrepreneurs and bring that into the company if these companies are going to succeed.
See, I don't know. I was on Jeff Brown's Read to Lead podcast a few weeks ago, and he mentioned the cover, I think, of Success Magazine. It was like, is the 9-to-5 job dead? And I think, so I don't know. I think companies are evolving, but they're not evolving in the way that you or I would want them to. And that's not necessarily bad, because the way that you or I would grow and scale our business to 100,000 or 1 million or 2 million are some of the same things that they're talking about, like letting people work remotely or work their own hours. We don't necessarily want to hire an entrepreneur because they'll take our ideas and start their own business, which is why I have a non-compete section in my contract. Surprise. But the ability to work from home, which I had that 2 hours or 2 days a week, maybe flexible hours. I think companies are evolving, just not in the way that you or I care to be a part of. At least I know I don't really care to be a part of that.
So shifting over to the types of conversations you've been having on the show, it's changed now from Empowered Podcast to the Ellory Wells Show.
It has, yep.
And what was the thought process behind the branding and any changes in the content?
Sure, I'll get a little bit more specific than I sometimes do. My first blog was called Empowering the 80%, and I'll do you remember? Which side note? Let's come back to this. I didn't realize that you and I were both at the New Media Expo in 2014 before it like tanked. Yeah. I was thinking about this, and we'll come back to your question. I was thinking, if like 50% of success is showing up, 50% is just sticking around, and the other 50 is like all the other stuff, the skills and the talents and the luck. But how many people do you remember from January of 2014, Harry, that like they just didn't even renew their URL, or they did a few eps that may be an oversimplification, but it definitely takes more than 100% effort to be successful. But it's just, part of it is just like, what is it? Survivor, the show, like Outlast, out something,
Outwit. Yeah.
I mean, just stick around. I mean, I got a random tangent. I got a business card from this guy at Podcast Movement, and his URL from 3 weeks ago, his email bounced and the URL doesn't work. 3 weeks.
He probably wasn't even working to begin with.
Maybe he just wanted to have this business. But anyway, I've forgotten your question. Okay. So it was empowering the 80%. It's the Pareto, yeah. 80-20 rule. And I was just thinking, well, how much more successful could you be if, instead of focusing on the 20%, what if you could empower the 80%? It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Well, it was not the best branding. It took more than half a second to explain, but I ran with it for 2 years, I guess. So having the brand name Empowering the 80% lended itself really well to the Empowered Podcast. So I ran with that even after I changed my URL over to ElloryWells.com. And I felt like the traditional model of podcasting, I was kind of tired of it. I was just, even not just hearing it, because I don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts anymore, just because I don't commute anymore. The longest commute really is like 3 minutes down the hill to Starbucks or whatever. But I was very much intro, transition music, interview, transition music, outro. It's like, this is, I don't want it anymore. And I felt like I felt like I wasn't able to just go all in on throwing my personality out there. And most new people, they kind of hide their personality. They want to be professional and blah blah blah. It's all bad advice. By the way, everyone, people like you because of your personality, and I felt like the structure that I'd been using for 90 something episodes, maybe 70, 80, whatever. I felt like it was very confined to not include my personality.
Yeah.
As much as I would have really liked, and I wanted to change it up. Plus, most of my traffic was coming people searching for my name, and then so there was actual logic behind it too, not just an emotional decision. But for SEO reasons, and I felt like removing, like right now, you've got podcast junkies. That could be anything.
Yeah.
Not just podcasts. And I had this idea of doing more video and having the Ellory Wells show. Anyway, I wanted to take podcast out of it. My brand wasn't empowering anymore, although those are empowering and equipping are my two kind of attack points. That's probably a really long way to answer your question.
Well, the other podcast you have with Ashley is occasionally explicit.
Yeah.
Which I caught the last one, which is hilarious. And I was like, well, there's a big gap here.
Well, yeah. We'll call that a hiatus.
Yeah. Or a season. You could just call it a season. Oh, that was season 2, guys. Welcome to season 3.
Exactly. And we're back.
I like how podcasters now have that out. Like if they ever go on, they need to take a break or they took a break. Okay, so that was a season. You know, I've seen like 3 seasons in the span. There's no rhyme or reason here, by the way. I've seen seasons that last like 10 episodes. I've seen someone literally change their numbering scheme. So they start in the hundreds. And then when they go to the next season, they start in the 200s. And season 3 is in the 300s. So I was looking at the numbers and it was like episode 400 and something. I was like, oh my God, this guy is like Dave Jackson, you know? And it was like a total of like 20 episodes. And they were just like renumbering at the hundreds with each season. I'm like, oh, they're just confusing the shit out of people now.
Yeah. So yeah, you could call this one a new season. I'm glad you caught it though.
But what's funny is that we just need a event, right? We need a place where we can just say whatever the hell's on our mind. I'm trying to incorporate that now into this show and the conversations that I have. As you might imagine, I go to Podcast Movement and I tell people I have a podcast that interviews podcasters, and they're like, I'll be on your show. I was like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
And I have no idea if I can sustain an hour-long conversation with you. So let's hold off on that thought and let's get to know each other a little bit, because I don't want to bore my audience. And I just want to have, honestly, it's my show. And as selfish as it sounds, I just want to talk to cool people and friends and that's it. You know, at the end of the day, you figured out your show. Like, I don't want it to be formulaic, and I want to have we should have a good time while we're doing this, right?
I'll tell you what, yes. One of my most downloaded episodes was with a guy named John Harrison. I don't know if he's a Florida guy. And he and I had met before through blogging, actually. And we met in person in 2014, I don't know, a couple years ago. And I interviewed him after I got back here to Texas. And there was some structure to it, but we had a great rapport because we're friends, which, by the way, I think the way you do it with video adds an element to that might not be there otherwise, even if you know the person. And people just really liked the connection that we had. So you do have to, there's not only numbers to back up that drive to do it that way, but there's it's also, I think, more fun to listen to. Yeah.
One of the things you and Ashley were talking about was a recap of Podcast Movement, and it was, for me, it was a lot of fun to connect with people. I can probably count on one hand the sessions that I went to, but you mentioned something about it renewing, something about the sense of power of podcasting for you because you went there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Or were we too harsh in our judgments?
No, I think you were spot on. So I think people need to call a spade a spade.
There you go. So the power of podcasting. it seems to have been diluted a little bit over the last maybe 12 to 18 months, but I've called it sounds kind of weird, but I called that New Media Expo that we were talking about before kind of like this magical time. That was my first opportunity to be around people who were kind of like me, that like the blogging and podcasting stuff. And then you get podcast movement, and it's a lot of those. I wasn't, but it was almost like I was a celebrity at the first podcast movement, because it was like 300 or 400 people, and I probably knew a good chunk of them.
Yeah.
And I'd been keeping in touch with them for a year or so. But podcasters in general seem to be like very encouraging and helpful, and at least at the conferences are very much like, I start your show. How can I help you? Here are some tips. Here are some people that you need to know. And that's kind of diluted. Maybe it's remained the same and other things have grown, but my connections haven't. I don't know. It might be as much of my problem as opposed to an organizational challenge. But when people were asking us about our show, is it coming back? What happened? I enjoyed it or whatever. That tells you, oh, people were out there and listening, so you want to do it. Plus, you get the fact like this is a really powerful way to share any sort of message. So if you have a business behind it, or I don't know if you're familiar with John Dennis, yeah. John, like he grew his business and had to stop podcasting because it was bringing in too much business as a marketing tool. So podcasting is a great way to connect with people, and just by going and being around it, you're like, man, we really did have a whole lot of fun while we were behind the microphone. We should start that up again. And then that occasionally explicit that we do is we ended up talking about like her work, my wife's work, and then
and David Copperfield.
David Copperfield and a whole bunch of other crap. And then what I'm doing. So there is a little bit of, like business stuff that goes on, but it's mostly just marriage. And people, like if we were sitting around having a glass of wine or a beer and a cigar or something like that, that's the kind of stuff that we would talk about anyway. And that's why people listen to it. It's just like, I mean, you could probably just turn it on and then go and sit there and feel like you were sitting on the couch with us. And that's the goal. But at the same time, it is still a really cool way to connect with people who, whether either want to be entertained or informed or whatever.
I think what's great about that is it gives people an insight into who you are, and it sort of rounds out your personality, because if they just heard you on, the Ellory Wells show, they'd get this, the specific message you want to deliver there. But there's two things happening. On Occasionally Explicit, you're more relaxed, and then you have Ashley to bounce ideas and go back and forth on, and you've got that dynamic that really helps. And I think you were doing Facebook Live at the time too, as if you needed it to make things more complicated. But now you have the riffing off of the comments too, which is interesting and something I might try as well. But I think all that together makes you feel like you're at this, this like cocktail party or something like that.
And I think that's how some of the best podcasts work. I mean, when you, I don't know how long or what episode number this will be, and therefore how long it is after your 100 with Chase. But you feel like, man, I could be sitting right there talking, or like, yeah, I agree too. I mean, like, yeah, that was pretty stupid, or that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it skews a little bit too close to like textbook. I mean, you don't go and you don't read your like anthropology 400 pages for fun. I mean, somebody might, but I mean, you go and you read the fiction, you get the highs and lows and the action and the happy and the sad. And I think that's why TV is so powerful, because I mean, why a show like a CSI or whatever, I don't even know if that's still on, is more popular than like some documentary, because people want to be entertained before they want to be informed. Yeah. And if you can provide that entertainment in an educational way, or at least where they kind of like vicariously learn something, I think that's pretty awesome too.
So I imagine over time, people start to get to know more about you, right? More personally, things about you, and maybe in conversations that's come up. But I'm wondering if you think about conversations you've had with people, if there's one thing that you would say is the most misunderstood thing about you?
Maybe two things. If you want to know the second one, you can ask. But I think the first one is people think I'm extroverted. I am not extroverted. I'm quite introverted. Introverted doesn't necessarily mean shy, but if I walk into a room, I'm not going to be I don't mind being the center of attention, but I'm not the guy that will go in and start conversations with anybody. I'll just sit over there and lean against the wall and judge people. I'm an INTJ, and the J is for judging, I think, is on the Myers-Briggs. But a lot of people think, oh yeah, you're very extroverted. I'm like, nope, I'm actually not.
Yeah, the term that I've heard is a situational extrovert.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely that. If I'm in a position to where that's expected of me, it's totally different. Like after Podcast Movement last year, I hosted a dinner with, I don't know, 15, 20 people, and I was as extroverted or behaving that way as they come, talking to everybody social. But I'd already also had a margarita or two, which does not help or does not hurt the situation. Yeah. But yeah, situationally extroverted, or that's accurate. Yeah.
You said there were two. What's the second?
The second one, someone who was doing editing for me for I think it was a Good Men project. She said I came across as arrogant or cocky or something, or a know-it-all, and that's happened before. But it's not that. It's just I stick to what I know. Mm-hmm. Like if we started talking about, I don't know,
cigars.
Well, yeah, I probably would be a know-it-all because I am somewhat of an expert on cigars. But if we start talking about NASCAR, whatever, it would not be. So, if anyone out there has perceived me as being arrogant, it's not that. It's just I just stick to what I know, and I don't generally get outside of that. However, I do try to know a little bit about everything, so I can talk to anybody. But I'm not, well, maybe sometimes cocky, but I'm not a know-it-all. I'm very well researched. That's part of that. I was reading that INTJ profile, and I was like, holy crap, that explains a lot. Like when we have a conversation about cigars, I'm gonna have read like 3 books and smoked 400 cigars to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah, we have all these things that we deep dive into and we nerd out on. You had a great opportunity to say, if people think that I'm a know-it-all, and well, then F you and deal with it. And just, you could have just left it at it, and just rub some more people off the wrong way. What's something you changed your mind about recently?
Changed my mind about recently. I'm sure there was something.
And it doesn't have to be podcasting or business related.
Oh, I'll be honest with you. I had never talked to the redhead Tim Page before. Oh, yeah. You know Tim.
Yeah, Lee Pages.
I had never talked to him, and I just kind of assumed, and we know what assuming does. It makes an ass out of you and me. I just kind of assumed he'd be a douche because he's like me in a lot of ways. Like he'll go up there and he'll just tell you like it is, and he will tell you like the right way, and it's a really good way. But he's also very experienced in that. Like I've listened to him talk a few times, and if you didn't know, or maybe I don't want to say I'm more observant than people, but observant in a different way, I'm like, man, that guy's kind of an ass. But I had a chance to talk to him for basically a few hours while we walked around Chicago and went out. That guy is cool. He's really cool. He's down to earth. And when he says something with confidence, there's a reason. So many people blow smoke. Like their opinion is like the holy grail of advice, but they have no reason to think that way. Like you're just an idiot with an opinion. Like there's no experience. There's no research. But Tim has a lot of experience, and he's done a lot of research, and I respect a lot of what he has to say. And I didn't want to say that because it kind of makes me sound stupid, or I don't want it to make Tim look bad in any sort of way. But I really like that guy, and me thinking anything less than him being cool was my lack of getting to know him. But
Well, that's cool because I mean, we all want to grow, right, as people, and we want to know that you're a better person today than you were yesterday than you were a year ago. And just having that realization is just a nice way to say, I can think something of somebody and then have my mind changed. And then as a result, you're more open and maybe not as quick to judge for other people. And so like all that shit is good.
well, yeah, and Tim's been in this game that you or I are in, if you will, for a long time as well, and he's very well connected to some big players like Pat Flynn, and I mean all of the recognition that comes with lead pages and everything. And
Clay Collins, yeah.
Yeah, and I have seen people that are that well connected turn into real douchebags, and I just kind of assumed, oh, combined with everything else, he's probably a douche. Sorry, Tim, if you listen to this, I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, I can name the episode. Apparently, Tim Page is not a douchebag. Episode.
Yeah.
And people be like, what? I gotta click on that one.
Yeah.
My conversation with Ellory Wells. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that I don't know if that would help me in the online world.
SEO would be great for me. So,
well, I like that guy a lot.
Well, I think as a result of this conversation, people realize that you're actually a nice guy now.
Oh, actually a nice guy. Oh man, that's like the opposite of a humble brag. That was like a nice slam. Oh, so you're not an ass.
You're not an ass.
Oh,
well, I mean, because we had sort of like we're in the same orbit, like you said, 2014. Chris Cerrone, I think, was a mutual friend, and then I was like, oh, there's Ellory, oh, Ellory, and then I was like, and then we just happened to have a couple of moments where we could connect a bit on this past podcast movement, and I was like, we got to chat. So I'm glad.
So what was your initial perception of me then? Let's put you on the spot then. What did you think?
Just aloof and into your own world, and I think that's how everyone gets perceived when you don't talk to someone. And there's so many conversations you can have in only a finite amount of time, and you have to pick like who. Not to sound like a jackass, but you have to pick who you spend time with and who you talk to. And so, for whatever reason, we didn't get a chance to do that. So I didn't have a specific opinion, but I was like, he's just that guy. He's doing that thing like everyone else. So
that guy doing that thing. Yeah.
Nothing exciting about that. But then, I mean, we all have interesting lives, and I'm glad we got this opportunity to chat for a little bit because I think you do have an interesting life, and I think you're doing interesting things, and I want more people to know about that.
Well, thank you. I think it's somewhat interesting. Maybe it's not as interesting as it. There's no dragons and slaying of whatever's, but that I was trying to make up a Game of Thrones analogy because y'all talked about it. But
no, but it's everyone. I think in your own way, you're slaying your own dragons, right? And you're making people realize the importance of getting out of that cubicle if they need to, and that's sometimes a bit more important even if you just change one life at a time.
Well, realizing if it's meant to be, it's up to me kind of thing. I mean, that's stop waiting around. Yeah. I mean, that's that kind of summarizes me and what I've seen and observed over the last few years. Just people who are doing something cool. Mm-hmm. Like most of the people that we've talked about in the last hour or so, it's because they did something, whether it worked or not. They just did something interesting, whether they fell on their face or we don't remember the time that they fell, but just doing something to make the change and be a podcast junkie. I don't know what happened to my shirt, by the way. I don't know what I did with it.
What a nice way to put a bow on this conversation.
I was trying.
Very good.
You get a sense for that clock winding down. So
what's the best place for folks to track you down?
ElloryWells.com. It's pretty easy because everything goes from there.
Feels good to have your own domain name, right?
Yeah. Do you have Harry Duran?
I do. I don't have anything on it yet, but I've got a get this persona or whatever, this brand thing going, Gary V style.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's good because then you can that's my home base for everything, and I can push people to my business, to my podcast, to my book when it's coming out, and all that sort of stuff. So, ElloryWells.com. Ellory, I'm really honored that got to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, that was fun. Or was fun.
Yeah.
We're still in it. It's been very fun. So
Very cool.
Thanks for having me and let me talk to the fellow podcast junkies out there.
Yes. Thanks for your time, and say hi to Ashley.
I will.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ellory. He's really a fascinating guy. I think you'll resonate with his story if you've ever been in corporate America and you realize that that's really not for you. But that doesn't mean we don't come from there with some stories and some lessons learned. I mean, I myself was in corporate America for 20 plus years. And it's almost like two different universes. It's the corporate mindset and then the entrepreneurial mindset. And I don't know that if you don't spend a considerable amount of time in one, that you will understand what the other is like until you've actually lived it yourself. So kudos to all those who have taken the leap, to any of those that are listening, that are thinking about taking the leap. I'm not going to say just do it because it sounds a little too cliche and it oversimplifies what's necessary from a mindset and preparation standpoint. But if that is an itch you're consistently looking to scratch, then there's a lot of opportunities to learn from folks who have done it before you. Ellory is definitely one of those. And if you have any questions for me, just shoot them into me. The primary way to get in contact with me that I'm focusing on for these few episodes is SpeakPipe. So head on over to podcastjunkies.com. There's a banner on the right side of the screen, and just click on it, and you can literally leave me a voicemail message that I'll get. I'm going to start playing some of those on the show as well. As a matter of fact, we did have two come in, so let's take a listen.
Harry Duran, Diz Runs in the house. How you doing, buddy? I meant to leave you a little message, a little voice memo, if you will, when you asked for it last week, but I was doing what I do. I was listening to the interview with Desmond when I was, driving or running, or I was doing something. I wasn't at home. I wasn't in front of the computer, and I just completely forgot. And then today, in your interview with Stefan or Steven, I don't know. I think it was Stefan, right? Am I remembering correctly? I was out riding the bike, and I was like, "Oh shit! I forgot to leave Harry a voicemail," but I finished riding my bike before the episode was over. So when it finished up and you were like, hey, head over to podcastjunkies.com and leave me a voicemail, I was like, oh yeah, I need to do that. So that's what I'm doing. This is probably the worst voicemail you've ever received, isn't it? I apologize for that. But anyway, I hope you're doing well, man. I definitely missed being able to connect with you and give you a hug at Podcast Moment this year, but hopefully our paths will cross again at some point sooner rather than later. So I'm about to get cut off. I got about 8 seconds left, so I'm going to get out of here, but keep up the good work, buddy, and we'll talk soon. See ya.
Harry, Patrick Keller here from the Big Seance podcast. I just wanted to tell you how much you rock. I love your podcast. I think you know that. And I have never missed an episode. I enjoy your retention hashtags, and you even inspired me to do my own retention hashtags on my own show. Occasionally, not all the time, but we call them paranerd hashtags on my show. And you know what? Your most recent episode with Stefan was awesome, and you know that would be right up my alley. And it was great. I like your Facebook Lives. I love to catch up with you on Facebook Live anytime I see you on there when I can, and nerd out with you there. And I also love that you're inviting people to use the SpeakPipe. I think every podcaster wishes that they would get contact from the SpeakPipe or any kind of audio feedback a lot more often than really happens. And I have my own SpeakPipe, and it's, very often quiet. So it was kind of cool to have an opportunity to leave someone else's SpeakPipe today. So Again, you rock. Thanks for everything you do. Bye, Harry.
I don't know what else to say. But that's awesome. I'm at a bit of a loss for words because you can tell that these are friends, that Denny and Patrick are friends and fans of the show. And I just can't tell you how much that means to me, guys. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you would take the time to record it and express your feelings about the show and following up on my call to action, which is always amazing as a podcaster to have that. And it doesn't happen enough. And I think just having the voice-to-voice connection, hearing a good friend's voice, even if it's people you've had on the show already, I just love this idea of creating connections for life when I have guests on who become friends. And I encourage those of you who haven't left me one to go ahead, head on over to podcastjunkies.com. The SpeakPipe button is there. As you might have guessed, I'm going to start playing these on the air. And I want to get the voice out for you and just share the comments and just increase the sense of community here on the show. So that's Denny Crahy, Diz Runs podcast, and Patrick Keller of the Big Seance podcast. Thank you so much. We are a member of Podcastica. Head on over to podcastica.com. We've got a great collection of shows there. In case you're wondering what to listen to, and if you run out of shows in your queue, check out the list there, and I'm sure you'll find something that you like. Music, intro, and outro music is composed by my friend George Abiana, otherwise known as Cedar and Soil. You can find his fantastic, amazing music at cedarsoil.com. Again, the call to action is pretty simple today. SpeakPipe button on podcastjunkies.com. Very easy for you to leave a comment for me. The sponsor for this week is this episode is, well, I'm not going to do a second take on that. This episode is brought to you by is probably how I should formally introduce that. But it's PodFunnel, and PodFunnel is my new project, and it's for podcasters who understand how overwhelming it is to get all the episode details up. It's enough of a chore to get it produced and edited and hosted up to your hosting company, if it's Libsyn, Blueberry, whatever it is, and up to iTunes so people can find it. But there's other things you could be doing, but most often podcasters don't because they run out of time. So I've created PodFunnel. It's a front-end dashboard that lets you submit your podcast and all the pieces of it to WordPress, SoundCloud, YouTube, Twitter as well. We'll schedule that whole first week of tweets for you. We've also embedded Auphonics ID3 tagging and mastering engine inside the tool. So you don't have to pay extra for Auphonic. Sign up for a membership at PodFunnel, and that's included. So you'll get the ID3 tag mastered, all your artwork embedded, and your description embedded. The audio is going to sound amazing. And then we'll send it over to, right now we support Libsyn, so it'll FTP it over to Libsyn, and then get it on over to those other sites as well. So right now I'm in the process of signing up what I call pioneers. If you're interested, please head on over to podfunnel.com, put in your email, and I'll get in contact with you. There's a couple of slots left, and it's really someone who's interested in getting a one-time price for lifetime access, and you'll be included in all the upgrades that are going to be added. We're looking to add Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn as other destinations that you can customize. It's not just sending it to there, it's customizing the pieces of your podcast to there as well. So a lots more to tell you about. I'd love to dive in deeper with you, so check it out if you get a chance. The retention hashtag is going to be always Ellory. It's hashtag ALWAYSELLORY, always Ellory. Just to let me know that you've made it this far, regular fans. I really appreciate the fact that you do that. It means a lot to me, And I don't forget that stuff. So tune in next week. We're going to have an interesting conversation with Karen Coppett. If you don't know the name, you definitely know the show. It's Walking Dead. And you definitely know the podcast. It's Walking Dead Cast with Jason Kabasi and Karen Coppett. I had Jason on earlier, and now I get a chance to speak to an amazingly funny Karen Coppett, and you're going to enjoy that conversation. She's obviously got a regular job outside of the podcasting, which is fascinating as well. But she's just a really engaging personality, and I think you'll really like that. So thanks again for your support. I love you guys. SpeakPipe for the comments so you can be included in the next episode, and I'll talk to you soon.